right. Happy
All
Monday.
right.
Yeah. This is the one I've been waiting for, man. Like I remember like I've been pumped to get you on, like I wanted to get you on a live like 5 minutes after I asked you to come on to I'm like, I want to talk about this right now. So all right. So for those of you, without further ado, we got the man, the myth, the legend, Charles, who just closed his first deal. And
Woo. Yeah.
like that, it doesn't get much better than that. I mean, and it was now like I was reading that HUD one right, 33 grand.
Yep.
You
$33,000, man.
damn, that's
You know,
gotta feel good.
one of my biggest paydays ever.
Oh man, like because that's the thing. It's like so. I guess real quick because I know this, we know this because we've actually you're one of the few people in the group we've met in the flesh, in person. Like we've shook hands before, people. But because when you were in town. But so you own several cell phone repair stores. Cell phone.
Yeah, so I own a few cell phone repair stores here in the Central Valley of California. I've owned this one here for 10 years now. I actually, 10 years ago, believe it or not, right before cell phone repair, I was looking for a store to open a store in, and I ran across a guy that I met through the advertising that he had for the space, and we got to talking, and he's seen something in me. He goes, "You know what? You ever thought about selling real estate?" And I go, "No, why?" I said, "You sound like a sales guy. I can use somebody like you on my team." And so what he did was he sent me to the Craig Proctor program out in Las Vegas and in LA Live in Los Angeles. And we bought into it, and we focused on like reverse lead generation tactics. And he moved me out to the Bay Area, and I actually did commercial and residential real estate in the Bay Area just for a small stint. It was $1 million to $8 million houses. So, I ended up getting my first deal there and sold a house and made about $29,000. And that amount of money, I go, you know what? I'm doing the commuting and everything. And I had a little brother of mine who was actually, I was his guardian, and he was having a hard time getting into trouble and stuff. And so I took him out of the hood, so to speak, and brought him to Turlock, where I went to college at here at Stanislaus State. And that was really the reason why I stopped doing real estate the first time, because all this traveling, all the commuting, and being away from him, I sat down one day and I go, what am I here for? What am I living for? It's for my family, and he's getting back in trouble at school. And so, I just took it in one day and I called my partner and my mentor, and I said, you know what? I don't think it's going to work for me. I'm really sorry. I helped him develop a real estate brokerage from the ground up, from the hiring, from the training, from the systems development, from the flyers, the name and everything there. And I said, you know what? I'm in it for my family. I appreciate the opportunity. And then I came back and went to my labor of love, which was cell phone repair, and never really looked back. I've been doing cell phone repair for the last 10 years now.
Yeah, and you've been crushing it. Because how many different locations do you have? It's a couple.
So I have 3 locations now here in Modesto, Ceres, and Turlock. I actually have an online store as well. And so we do buy, sell, trade, repair, unlock. And it's really kind of a one-stop shop, because I've seen the difference between my store and other stores. Every single customer that walks in the door, I want to make sure I'm able to help them. I don't want to send them elsewhere to get their phone unlocked, to get their phone repaired, to get service, to get accessories. I'm a one-stop shop. And actually that was the name until I just changed up the name here recently, was One Stop Cellular. It was basically a one-stop shop for everything. And so, I've been doing it here. I actually got to a point where I had 5 stores. Believe it or not. And then it just got overwhelming for me. Me and you talked a little bit about systems generation, and I really wasn't focused on systems. And so I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to be, one owner at 5 different stores, splitting myself 5 ways. And it was just super overwhelming. And I decided to sell off a couple of those stores. I went all the way back down to 1. So I closed 2, sold 2 of them to some competitors who are still around right now, unfortunately. And so and then I got back into it. Yeah, I thought about that later. But yeah, I just got back into to opening more stores about 2 years ago. I said, you know what, it's about that time to expand again. And then here about, I don't know, November last year, I know I'm jumping ship a little bit, but November last year, I went to a Tony Robbins conference here in San Jose, and it was a wealth building conference, and he had a bunch of workshops, and it was on fire. There was Pitbull there was Grant Cardone, he spoke, Tony Robbins, Raymond, I think it's
Damon John.
Damon James.
Boo-boo.
Yeah, the guy from Fubu. He spoke, and about 30 or 40 other people spoke, some on the main stage and some other workshops. And I actually took a workshop on tax lien investing in there. And that got me to believe that the barrier of entry for real estate investing was a little bit lower, because you can invest in these liens from different states, because California happens to be a tax deed state, but some states, namely Florida, is a tax lien state. And so the cities aren't in the business of real estate. They're in the business of taking money to pay for the municipalities, the school systems, the police, fire, and all that. And so obviously, as you know, they go and sell to other investors these tax liens, and they have a guaranteed rate of return on that's government mandated. So basically, you can go and invest in this tax lien. They'll sell it to you, and you wait to the time where it comes to maturity, and you then get the house, or the rights to the house. Of course, you got to foreclose on it. But I saw that, and there was this thing. I think it's called like Tax Lien Buyers Club, and I gave an answer, and I went up on stage and I gave an answer to the question that they had. They said at the end of it, I'm going to ask a question, and I guess I had the best answer, so I won a tax lien certificate to own one in Florida.
That's
and so
about okay.
Yeah, and so I did my research, and I thought it was a hoax. It was a real thing. I had to go call the city, get on their list, or fill out all the paperwork I had to, contacted them back, and I then became the owner of my first tax lien. They said, "Hey, this person doesn't pay for it. You own this." And I go, "What do you mean?" Like, yeah, you actually own the property. You got to foreclose if there's anybody there, but you own it. You don't have to do anything else. And I go, "Oh, really? Wow." And so that's what kind of kicked it off, and I already been really studying about wholesaling. I kind of been hearing it, and there was a couple guys who talked about the no money down real estate tactics and things like that. And so it was kind of in the back of my head. And then that guy, what is his name, from Flip That House, Than Merrill, he did one of his workshops in town, and that was the next workshop that I went to, and that was all it was about, was really wholesaling. That was the main point there, and so that's when I really kicked off and started really becoming, went to YouTube University, so to speak, and learned every single thing that I can about tax lien, wholesaling, a little bit of fix and flip, but mostly I wanted to know how I can get into the real estate game without having to have a buttload of money, because I knew I had the skills that were developed from my cell phone repair and through car wholesaling that I do as well. And so I've developed those skills from finding something that was messed up, beat up, or ugly, and turning it around.
I remember getting into that, because he's like, Rob's like, it's the same damn thing. Yeah, it is the same damn thing.
Exactly. It really is, man. It's just a different beast. You just add a couple zeros to the end of it. At the end of the day, you're sourcing items that are below market value for whatever reason. And sometimes I was actually selling them right across to other car lots and other people who wanted to put the money into them, i.e. wholesaling them, or I was putting the money into them myself and turning it around and selling them on the market, i.e. fix and flip, right? So it's pretty parallel to what I do. Even with cell phones, I'll buy a broken phone, fix it up, and then resell it, or I wholesale it,
I see you sell, every once in a while, you talk about, these are the alternative to AirPods, I see your stuff pop up. So I'm like, I always get curious, the cell phones and stuff. I bet you flip that.
But anyways, that's what kind of brought me into wholesaling. And then, your guys' group was a real big, eye opener. I had belonged to a couple other groups, there was Max Maxwell and Wholesaling Houses Elite. But, I feel like the group Savvy Real Estate Investors had the most grounded group to the creators. I actually felt like you guys were there, not just a little bubble on the screen who maybe had an assistant to deal with all the people. I really enjoyed your guys' personal approach to it, and personality in general. And I really took a liking to it. And that was kind of what lit my fire, and got me more and more into it. I'm not doing it 100% full time, but that's what really got me believing, okay, this is something that I really want to do. It's time to throw out the theory, get out of the procrastination phase, right? And just get down to it and just try to go out. And, I took your guys' little, I guess it was a workshop or like a weekly, and I never buy those things. It was a really reasonable cost. So I go, you know what, should I do this? And I sat there for a few hours and I go, I spend more money this on a night out in the town and didn't get anything for it. So let me go ahead and shoot and try it. And then I took your guys' workshop, and that kind of, orchestrated my mindset to get me to a point where I wanted to be to get started, like really take it seriously. And so.
No, that was awesome, because it's just like to watch your progression was huge, because, it's, that's the humbling thing about this, is because, someone like yourself, like you're accomplished. You know what I'm saying? Like you've got your shit figured out, to put it blunt. I mean, you're an entrepreneur who's done it, who's been doing it. And so, you sounded like a lot of people at your level is that you had a very good understanding that you wanted to get into real estate, or even the story you're telling is get back into real estate. But I know that when we met with you, it was finding the right niche to jump in, finding that paralysis by over analysis kind of
thing. Give me a quick second. I'm actually on a live right now. And I'm going to be on here for just a minute. So I don't know if you want me to tinker around with that, or you want to give me some. I have like 20 minutes or so at least.
If you want to just put some in front of me, I'll tinker with them.
Okay.
Or can you not step
I really can't right now. This is like a live interview that I'm doing.
Okay.
Hey.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, my door's open here, so I got to keep it open. But anyways, I'll try to kind of fight through that.
Hey.
But anyways, where were we at? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, because you're doing it. I mean, like the thing is like you come at this from a different angle than most. Is that you just you're a wealth generator in your head, and it's just like you saw real estate. You talked about tax lien. You're like, all right, I got a tax lien. Then we had a big conversation, because like when we met with you, I think your mental framework, you were just like you were more fix and flip at the time. I want to say I met with you when you were here for the paintball tournament, and then. Which is really cool. Like Rob still has aspirations to be.
The paintball stuff. We love the paintball stuff.
Definitely, we gotta get together and do that sometime.
Absolutely, but the big thing with that is just watching the way that, because I mean you were on the fence when we met. So I mean, like from the time that we met, like you weren't even in the boot camp at the time. I mean. We sat down at Starbucks and I'm like, like you're a cool dude. Whether you join the boot camp or not, that's on you. Like that's great. I just love having you in the group. And then all of a sudden, you fast forward. Was it 3 months now? 4 months? I don't even know.
Yeah, about 3 months from then, or so, 3-4 months.
And $33,000 later, here you are. So I guess walk me through, because I think we started talking about your deal about a month and a half ago, because it's like you started, then you were trying to arrange some funding, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's just like, here's my HUD-1. Yeah. And I'm like, hell yeah. So how did you find it? So, because like the big thing for us is like what we teach in here is that repeatable system. So someone like yourself, who's an entrepreneur, who's doing it, can basically start again, because you follow the steps. So this property that you closed on, how did you find it?
So like in this particular situation, like when I was thinking about doing this live, I go, man, I really wished I had some great story about how I went and cold called somebody, and the person that I cold called happened to have a house for sale. But believe it or not, in this particular situation, it was really like the what you call it, the basically universal law of the universe and the law of attraction, right? And so indulging into real estate, being one with it, studying it. I have my I buy houses cash fast shirt on, right? Right. And so, and I literally, I have 3 of them now because I like to switch them up. But like just being around real estate is actually what led me to this deal. I was actually listening to one of your guys' lives, right? Because you guys did the live just about every day. And I was listening to it live at work, right? And somebody came in and she was getting her phone repaired. And she goes, what were you listening to right there? And I go, oh, just some real estate stuff. I'm really into real estate right now.
I think that's a JV. Like, do we get a cut out of this?
I think so, man. I think I was thinking I might have to send you guys a little thank you package or something like that for sure,
So
for sure.
okay.
But yeah, no, I literally was. I was listening to one of your guys' live, and she goes, "What was that you're listening to?" And I go, "Well, it was real estate investing. This is what I've been into, and once I get into something, I just kind of dive in." And so she goes, "Oh, that's weird because my mom actually she passed away, and we had a house." The house, and I go, well, what's going on with it? She goes, oh, nothing. They're going to foreclose it on Tuesday,
Okay.
right? And then I go, oh God, and this is Thursday, so this is a Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday the week before, and she goes, Tuesday, they're going to foreclose on it. That's the foreclosure sale. And I go, well, what are you going to do? And she goes, I don't know, nothing. I guess I was just going to let it go. And I go, well, you should probably look into that. I think, this could be a potential for a deal. My wheel started churning,
Uh-huh.
and then I go, well, tell you what, give me the information. If there's anything at all that I can do to help out, I'll be more than happy to go ahead and help you out and see what I can do. And she goes, oh, you do that? And I go, yeah, sure. So I messaged you guys
Yes.
that I think it was that night, or I put a post up and I said, hey man, I got a lady who has a house. What are the steps that I need to get her, in a position to sign the contract?
Nice. File a TRO or bankruptcy.
Affidavit of heirship, right? Is what you said, and some of those things.
The purchase agreement.
Right. Yeah. And I go, great. Okay. So literally the next morning, I went for it all. I went down to the county recorder's office. Right. And I started scrolling through. I went and talked to the lady in the front and say, hey, I got this property. I need to find information about it. She took me to the computers and literally she kind of gave me the information on how to get through them. And I went and started to scroll through all of the paperwork files that were recorded on there, like the notice of trustee sale, notice of default, anything that I can find about that particular property that I could. And so I went ahead and got the lender's information that was on there. Got everything printed out. I think it was like $2-3 a page or something like that. And I started contacting the lender. The lender that was on there wasn't the actual lender that had it, because I guess it had been transferred to another lender, and then that lender's transferred to another lender. So I'm like scrambling around. And finally, I get to the right lender, because the lady, typically you think that they have the paperwork, right? But she hadn't been living in the house, and she didn't have any of the paperwork from the notice of default that normally would have been easy just to find out from there what was owed on the house, what was going on with it, or whatnot. And so finally, I get in contact with the actual lender of the house. And it was difficult at first because I'm just Joe Blow, right? They're like, who are you? You're not the borrower, so you're not the daughter, the heir, like, who are you? And I go, well, I'm a friend of the heir, and I'm actually trying to help them get in touch and try to get something out of this, because it's going to close on Tuesday. It's going to go to the auction. So they go, okay, well, go ahead and get me some information from them, yada, yada. So I'm kind of like back to square one. And so what I did was I don't give up, right? So I called back and I got another person on the phone, and the same thing they told me. And then I hung up and I called back, believe it or not. I called back again. And then this other person, they were more forthcoming about the information, right? So they told me, they told me, they gave me more information than they probably should have. They told me the amount of money that was owed on it, what was going on with it, what had to be done to get it postponed. I let them know that this is what we're going to do. We're actually going to get the house sold. So we really need some more time. And then she goes, well, let me talk to my manager. And she just bypassed any authentication information whatsoever. And luckily, I was fortunate enough to get that foreclosure sale that was coming on Tuesday through a series of information and conversation postponed to the August 7th date, which was instead of May 15th, was the date that it was supposed to be, and then they postponed it to August 7th. I got an update. I went on auction.com and it said postpone right there. And so I was just ecstatic. I go, okay, I called the girl back. I said, hey, you're never going to guess this. You're going to lose it in 5 days. Now you're not. We got until August 7th, so let's get this thing going. And so now it was kind of like the first step, the first biggest step and the big win from this situation. And so August 7th was the new date. And so now here we are. She's still not on there at all as a lender. She's just an heir at the time. I still don't know much about it, but based on the information and the conversations that we had, I know that I had to get something to do with probate. I had to get her involved in starting the probate process. So luckily, I had what's called Legal Shield, which is like a prepaid legal service. It's like $24.95 a month, but it's actually legit. I thought it was a hoax too, but I said, you know what, why not? Let me $24, whatever, and I paid for it. And actually, I got to talk to a probate lawyer. We had like about a 2-hour conversation about what steps I had to take in order to get her in a position to be able to sell the house and to have a title that she can sign on. And so I went ahead and talked to her, and I go, okay, these are the steps. I went and took it from there. I went to the courthouse, which is in downtown Modesto here, and there is a probate, and I got ran around downtown. Hey, you go here, now go here. Finally, I got to the probate office, and I got this lady who's been working there for 20 years or so, and she gave me the rundown on exactly what I needed to do in order to get in the process of how it had to happen, the time frame, how I can get a special order to get her to become the administrator of the estate or the executor of the estate, which is what she had to be in order to sign off on the house and to sign for her mom, who had unfortunately deceased. Right. And so from there, I went ahead and I was going to do it on my own. I went into the law library and I went back down there and I go, this is a lot of stuff. And the lady said, you can do it. But it just seemed like in so little time that it was a lot to do. So I went ahead and I contacted a couple lawyers. Right. And I went to one of the lawyers downtown Modesto that I was referred to. I'm actually by her. It happened to be in the same building. And that lawyer actually told me that her process, she actually was able to waive any fees until after the probate's done. She can get all of the paperwork in order for her to be the administrator of the estate. Normally it takes a month, 2 months for the court date to even be set. What we did was we requested that the court do an emergency order, so that way, because of the pending foreclosure, which was coming on August 7th. So here we are. That was I guess it was Monday that just came right after the week, the weekend, and by Friday that week, she had the emergency order that she became the administrator of the estate. So she was actually able to enter the negotiation with me about the house. And so that's what kind of started. That was kind of the preface of what led to, me finding the house and me getting the heir in a position to get the house sold. So that way she can go ahead and not lose out on everything through the foreclosure.
That's the thing is, like, we talk about it. It sounds hokey sometimes, but like as investors, but we're problem solvers because you're attacking this situation that most people.
I can't really hear you.
Did you get your volume get bumped again? Oh,
freeze.
He's gonna have to reconnect. So stay tuned, everybody. Stay tuned. This story gets better. The only thing about this story is that we all know how it ends, and it ends with Charles making $33,000.
Absolutely.
So if you want to find out how Charles, here's a big thing. We'll try to fill in some of the gaps. Is that so? Guys, like Charles is a successful guy outside of this, but the thing that you need to understand is that, he talked about it. It was the law of attraction that brought this about. This had nothing to do with him having money when no one else didn't. What this, really came down to is like Charles talked about, it's the law of attraction. So, for starters, what you guys need to do is you need to listen to our daily lives out loud in public.
It made him $33,000.
Our daily lives made Charles $33,000.
Yeah, that's what we're going
with. That's what we're going with. No kidding. But the thing is that, it's, and you saw Charles wearing the shirt. The big thing that I can tell you guys is that these are simple conversations to have. Is that, you don't know what people are going through unless you ask. It's we've got a team that we're working here with right now. They're sitting, they're right there. They are right there checking all of this out because they're like, dang, that dude made some bank on that. But the big thing is that it's just casual conversations. Whether you get your hair cut, you go to the grocery store, you're like, hey, this is what I do. I buy and sell houses. This is what I do. And that's what Charles did. And, what he did, though, on top of that, is that he recognized what his limitations were. And he knew when to ask questions, where to ask questions, and who to ask questions to. Because the situation that he was in was a tricky one. I mean, it's honestly.
Even beyond that, he's persistent as hell. Mm-hmm. Because how many people that are listening to this or just How many people do you know that would call back 3 times? I would, because I mean, I would call all day. But like, call 3 times after he's gotten a no, stonewall, keep going. And that was before he had the deal. This was so he could do the deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, like, you have to stick with it, be persistent, understand what you're doing, and make the thing happen, because it's not going to be given to you. I mean, he got the he got the deal because he was listening to the live, and people knew that he's interested in real estate. So just had a conversation.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, and that was the big thing, is that, then on top of that is that he stuck to the process, guys. Like, that was the big thing, is that he could have very well just given up, and that house would have gone to the auction block on Tuesday.
The easiest thing.
It would have been exactly.
Yeah. That's the easiest thing for him to do.
But the thing is that, guys, remember, there's a process, and he knew that, like, when he came into the group and he asked, because I remember this conversation, I could dig back on here when he asked it, is like, there's 3 different ways, and he took the ask nicely approach.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds weird.
Hey, ask nicely works more often than you think. I mean, it really works more often than you think. It's probably the easiest thing for people to do, and it's one that they don't believe in, but you just explain what you're doing. And the big thing there is he's telling the bank, hey, you're going to get paid because we're selling the house.
Yep.
There he is.
And all the banks.
There we go. I don't know what happened, man. Sorry.
No, like, it was great, because it's like, this is like watching, like, The Bachelor's, 2-part season finale. It's like, wait, the one thing that you guys do know is how this story ends. But, tune in to figure out how we get there. So, okay, so where do we leave off?
So you've got the power to go ahead and you stop the foreclosure. Your person has the right to go ahead and sign.
Yeah, exactly. So now, okay, I remember where we are now. And so, now she has a right to sign, so now basically the next step was to then sit down with her and negotiate a potential price for the house, right? And then next thing you know, obviously, is to get it sold. And so, the first step is I sat down with her and I really kind of looked at what the value was, where I came up with my offer price. I did a little bit of research and due diligence. I actually have a couple of friends of mine who are realtors, and I asked them for some comps, right, in the area. And so I reached out. I go, I actually put on Facebook, any of my friends, realtors that can help me out. One of them hit me up, and his name's Drew. He actually helped me out with comps in that area. And then I went ahead and also contacted a real estate office in the same city and to kind of cross compare comps as well with that. And then you never really want to, I know, use Zillow and those places, but I at least wanted to get an idea for what had been sold recently. And so I can kind of like get an average of the people that are giving me comps versus what my intuition was versus what Zillow was saying and everything, and kind of determine the value. I took that, and I did the normal formula, which was 70% of the ARV minus repairs, and the house came in worth about $300,000, which was about the ARV, $290,000 to $300,000, right? Sure. And so the first number that I spit out was 200. That to me that sounded fair. I knew that they owed about 155. Right. So I knew at that, after the lawyer took her cut and after everything said and done, that she'd still have a decent amount of money left over. So it was being fair for her, because she wasn't going to get anything. Now she's going to be looking at $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 for her after everything's said and done. And then there was enough room for me to get in and make some money as well. And so we got it locked under contract there. Basically the next day after she got the authorization to do so, I got it under contract for $200,000. So that was the original price of the house. And so we went ahead and took that, and I kind of ran with it. I went to start marketing it. One of the things that I think that I did before that really helped me out, and in turn, you'll see it really did, was the main thing here, was I went to the courthouse steps to the auction. So I went to the Stanislaus County auction, and I went there before this, during this, and after this, and every single one, and I took my cards that I got made at Staples, and my little book, and I go, I went there, and the guys turning around like, hey, what are you doing here? Are you buying houses? Oh, no, I'm inspiring to be buying them one day, but I'm just educating myself, I walked up, reached out to each individual that was there, kind of talked to them, finding out what they were into or what they were doing there. What I found was a lot of investors were there, and actually main investors and people who work for investment companies who were there actually buying houses. And when you go there,
Do
you
me a
have to have
favor.
a check.
Do
What's
me a
that?
favor. I got
Yeah.
my team right here, and tomorrow is their first day going to the tax auction to do exactly what you're talking about, man.
Right? Seriously, it really, that really paid off. But like just being there, meet these guys that were there with $300, $500, $600,000 cashier's checks in their hand. And I asked
Must
the
be nice,
auctioneer,
right?
how's this?
Must be
Yeah,
nice.
I'm like, how's this work? They go, well, you bid on it, then you show me your cashier's check, you sign it over to me, and you own the house. And I'm like, just like that, huh? And like, there's no, you have to come in here, get a bidder number. You have to show me that you have the money right now in order to pay for this house should you win it, and then you just bid on it. And these guys were basically throwing around $100,000 like crazy. They were actually asking me like, hey, what do you think about this house right here, man? What do you think? And I'm like, you didn't do any due diligence on this? They're like,
Don't you on me. Don't you?
yeah, they're like, I looked it up on Zillow, and I'm like, you didn't go to the tax office, you didn't, find out more information. And I'm like, well, I actually did some due diligence on a couple of these houses. I went to the tax, the office in downtown Stanislaus County in Modesto, and I actually legitimately did do some due diligence on some of the houses that were there because I wanted to have an educated opinion when I was looking on it, because I really wanted to know how much they were going to sell for, how much was owed on them, so that eventually when I did do this, I'd have a better idea. And furthermore, my main ulterior motive was to meet cash buyers, right? And so I introduced myself, and I pulled guys aside, and I said, hey, this is what I do. I spend most of my time sourcing these same types of properties, but I actually pre-vet them just a little bit. You see how you kind of buying this blind. At least I give you an idea of what I think it's worth, how much I think it's going to be to fix it up, make sure that there's no liens that are recorded or there's no tax liens on it, and I actually can bring these to you. If I did find something, would you be interested? And then I get more information from them talking about what's your price range, what's your sweet spot, how long you've been doing it, pretty much anything that I can do to understand and further help them and put them as a cash buyer. And the last thing I would say is, do you mind if I add you to my list of cash buyers so that if I find any other deals that are similar to this, if not better, then I can run them by you? Which is something you'd be interested in. And they go, oh, like 90% of them, or if not all of them, were like, sure. Here's my email. Here's my name. Here's where I'm from. You find anything at all, let me know. And that's how I went. So I went there, and I probably got 5 or 6 cash buyers that day. I went on two other follow-up ones, and then got about 5 to 10 cash buyers every day, right there. And that's kind of like was my first step, believe it or not, to starting to gather somebody to market the property to. And so basically after that, this particular property was a little bit different because the plan first was to actually buy it and rehab it. Like that was my plan, was to buy it.
Talking about that,
Yeah, and so I went on and I tried to find funding for it. I was like, well, how do I get funding for this? I couldn't get a hard money loan, but I didn't have, the 25, 30% down payment at the time that I would have needed to get a hard money loan. And so that was kind of the first plan and going through it. And then I went and talked to one of my friends who's actually in real estate. He's a real estate investor himself, and he actually took a look at it, and he goes, well, I don't know if you're going to be in over your head. I think it's probably a little bit more to it than you think. Why don't you just wholesale this thing? And I go, well, I was kind of thinking about that as well, and that's kind of when I started to think about, well, maybe I should just pitch this to a cash buyer or advertise it however I can. And so I go, you know what, let me go ahead and do it that way. But the house was a mess, man. The house was just junky. There was, there was actually 3, 4, 5 truckloads of stuff. It looked like a hoarder lived in the house. Windows were broken. The what do you call it? The garage door was knocked down. It was just beat up, man. It was beat up. And so the first step I actually did was I actually invested a little bit of my own money, which is probably a cardinal sin if you don't own the house to go out and invest money. But I just knew that this was going to be a good deal either way. Either I was going to buy it at the end of the day, I would have found a partner because of the spread that I created, about $100,000 a room. I figured somebody would partner with me. I was just being optimistic about it. So I probably invested about $3,000 into it. I put a garage door up just to secure it. I had a friend of mine that that I met at my cell phone store. I actually traded some stuff out with him and had him put the garage door. He traded all the labor out with me. The windows, I went ahead and got the windows replaced, and I got the house completely, all the trash hauled out, right? And the carpets pulled up. So I basically want to create a blank canvas because I felt that at that price range, it was still a little tight, but I didn't want to get beat down by any investors buying with their eyes instead of their minds, saying, hey, maybe, I got a lot of work here. And you just know how people are, it's
Absolutely. Yeah. Like a
right.
lot of guys do that.
And so I just thought that was the best route to take. Plus, I wanted to do it anyways because at the end of the day, that's going to be a good head start on doing the rehab if I was going to go that route. And so I went ahead and got it all the way cleaned out. And at some point between me deciding to wanting to go ahead and rehab it completely, do a fix and flip, and me getting it all the way cleaned out, I just completely flip the script and go, you know what? I'll just try to wholesale it, and if I don't get somebody to buy it for X amount of money, then I'll just last minute I'll get a loan, I'll sell some cars, I'll figure it out. I'm just optimistic about it. I knew there was a way.
The thing that we talk about is multiple exit. The best deals have multiple exit strategies. Like your deal's a home run on so many levels because you at no point in time were you trapped.
Right.
Right.
One option's better than the other. It's like we talk about most amount of money, least amount of time, but you weren't handcuffed. You weren't one of those, you made your money on the buy on the front end. Awesome. Cool.
And so I went ahead and I got it up. And so what I put it out at $245. That was my first offering for the house. I just felt that was the right price. After I cleaned it up, I didn't think that there was that much work that needed to be done afterwards. I looked at it. I go, really? I talked to a contractor. I actually got on Craigslist and found 2 contractors to come by and give me an idea on what it would cost to actually finish the rehab, to change the kitchen fixtures, to do the kitchen countertops, to do flooring. And I actually have a cousin of mine who does flooring, so he already gave me an idea of what he would charge me to do floors throughout. I basically there's about a 3 or 4 day period where I invited all of these contractors and different, not just contractors, but subcontractors of different things. So I had a flooring guy in my back pocket. I had to do the drywall. I had a guy to do paint. I had a guy for the fence. I had a guy for the plumbing. And so I got quotes on every single portion of it. So I got hard numbers on what it would actually cost. And at the end of the day, it wasn't really going to cost so much. So I thought $245 was fair, and so I put it out there. And so what I did was I put it on Craigslist and put it very generic, very vague, nothing about the property itself, just like, hey, 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Riverbank, $50K below market, great deal, good schools, whatever amount of work that I thought was needed. And so from there, I actually got 3-4 calls a day or texts a day asking about the property. And I go, I'd be happy to show it to you. I set up a window of time to show them. And so that's how I got started day one and posted it up on Craigslist. I reached out to all the people that I had been developing relationships up to this point. One of the things that I do a lot of times is I call bandit signs. Like anytime I see a bandit sign, I call it right away. I introduce myself to them. I say, I try to dig them out and find out, are they investors? Are they wholesalers as well? I try to find out one way or another that I might be able to work with them, because if they're another wholesaler, maybe I can bring them a property. Maybe they can bring me a cash buyer. Maybe they are actually buying houses and I can find them houses to buy, or maybe I just want to know where they got their signs from because they look cool and I really want to know. So one way or another, I like to network there with bandit signs. And I've actually found 3 cash buyers as well as a couple other people who have actually, the property that I'm working on right now came from a lead another deal that I'm working on came from a lead that came from a guy that he was a wholesaler who's gotten out of it, but he put me in touch with his cash buyer who then was who he heard about this deal that I had going on and really liked what I did with it. Because I kind of had a good conversation with him, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I got another property here in Stockton. How would you like to help me out with it?" And so I go, "Oh, okay. Well, what do you want?" And so I'm actually working on that right now. I'm dealing with. I was just off the phone with the guy who doing the cleanup, and I'm getting some appliances hauled and a well. Anyways, that's beside the point. But anyways, but that was just a great source for finding networking with somebody who's actual players in the game right now is calling those bandit signs up and dealing with those people. So between that and the other thing that I do to build my cash buyers list is I actually look on Zillow, and I have a friend of mine who has access to MLS, and I find out houses that are below market that have been purchased all cash, and I actually contact those people. So I either skip trace them or find the actual realtor and let them know what's going on, that I have houses in this area, and I like to get in touch with the person who bought this house because I'm always buying, looking, and selling in this area. So I've basically been adding a bunch of people. Probably I try to add 2 or 3 a day to my CRM that I have. It's just called Zoho CRM. It's a free one in the App Store, and it's super cool for free. It lines up everything. You can set callbacks, you can set tasks and things like that. And so I just been adding them as I went along, and I went and did somewhat of a text blast out to everybody that I met, and I got in the first 3 days I got about 10 showings of the property through my list, and everybody was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'll take a look at it," And so I got guys in and out of the house. I got guys out there to deal with them, and basically the ring that I was getting was that I was asking too much. That's what everybody was like, "Man, at 245, I don't know. How about 2?" And I'm like, "Oh God, I'm in this thing, for 2." And then finally, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead too far, but finally I got a guy who was interested in it. Probably out of the 10 people that came, 8 of them made me offers for it, right? Anywhere from $200,000 to about $225,000. Those were the offers that I was getting. They were all verbal offers at this point because I didn't want to tie anything up until I was sure about the numbers that I wanted. Because remember, I'm at 245, so I'm not really taking these offers seriously, and it's tough saying 200,000 cash right now. No, thank you. 200, no, thank you. Let me know when you can come up. And finally, one day, one of the guys that I met checked it out. I met him at the actual auction. One of the guys that I met there, and he was a real estate investor / real estate agent. And I met him there, and he checked it out, and he gave me a call and said, "You know what? We want to make an offer on the house." And I go, "What are you offering?" And so he put an offer in at $222,500. And so he put that in, and just in the text, we agreed on it. And this was on a Friday. And I thought about it, I said, you know what, I was away on not a vacation, but a little mini vacay in Santa Cruz at the boardwalk. And I go, well, let me think about it over the weekend. Come Tuesday, by the time I got back to him, he goes, "You know what? Offer's off the table, man. We did the numbers. It doesn't work out." I go, "But we agreed on it." Like I said, "Yeah." You said, "This is your price," and I said, "Sure." And I just got to get back to you on it to finalize things. And he goes, "Yeah, but I talked to my partner, so that's all we can do." And so we went ahead and I kind of canned it. I was really bummed about that because I thought, you know what, I better get this thing sold because I'm in it for 200. I put about 3,000 into it, so I'm in it for about 203. After all fees is said and done, 222.5 is not a bad deal. I'm going to get about $20,000, maybe 19.5 in profit. And so I go, I wanted 40. I wanted to hit a home run, right? But I go, I'll settle, for that much. But when I called him back, I was bummed because he said, deal's off of the table. And I go, oh, man. So what I did was at that point in time, a couple of the other guys that came by the house that offered me a little bit lower, there was one guy at 210, and he was a cash buyer, big time millionaire from L.A. And he talks a big game, real flashy guy. Hey, man, I can close this house in 3 days, yada, yada, yada. Forget those other guys. They're not cash buyers. What they tell you, close in 10 days, I'll close in, if you got the title ready, I'll close right now. I got the cash right here. And so I tell you what, is that the right? Is that the best you can do? And he goes, yeah. And I said, well, I got a guy. Let me make a call. So I called the other guys back. I said, hey, man, what can you do? 222.5 doesn't work for you. What can you do? So they go, you know what? I'll do 214.5. That's actually what they came down to just over the weekend. And first I go, man, these guys are janking my chain. I don't know. I'm only going to make a little bit. I thought I was going to hit a home run. So what I went and did is I went back to the seller, right? And I go, hey, I really want to get this deal done, but I don't think that it's worth what we thought it was. What can we do? What's the best price that we can do? What can we bring this down to so that you still make a little bit of money and I can get this thing sold? Because the time's ticking, and we got the auction date on August 7th now, and by this time, this is like mid-July, right? Yeah, no, so this is like a month and a half after I started. So about mid-July now. So we got 3 weeks or so into auction, and we're still negotiating, right? And we still haven't got it in escrow. And so, which I learned now, open escrow as soon as you get the deal. If it's a good deal, open escrow so you don't run into these problems. And so I went ahead and talked to her, reached out and said, hey, can we do better? And she goes, what do you mean by better? And I said, tell you what, if we can do 180, I can guarantee you that I'll have this house closed. I already got and I approached her and let her know that I'm working with investors, that's who I'm telling her straight up, like, I'm just a middleman. I have a team of investors that a group of investors that I work with, and I have to take the information you give me back to them so we can make sure we get this thing sold. And so she thought about it for a day or so, and she goes, if you guarantee me that it will get closed and that there's no more going back and forth, I'll do $180,000. And I go, sure, okay. So I went and did an addendum to the original contract and got it amended to 180K. And we were going to pay all the closing costs. So then I went back out to the seller that actually did the 214.5, and I called the cash buyer guy and I said, hey, you said 210 is the most. I like the fact that you're a cash buyer and you can buy fast. These other guys seem like they're getting a hard money. Can you do 214.5? And me and this guy went back and forth for a day and a half about the closing costs. This guy's Mr. Big Shot, and he's talking about $800, $900 in closing costs, and that was his stick. And I go, man, I'm giving it to you. These other guys are paying closing costs. By this time, they gave me a written offer because I told them, hey, I need that offer in writing. I need earnest money ready to go. I need the offer in writing. I don't want to play games. I don't want you to say that and try to come back and negotiate with me. Send me an email. The next morning, they had me an email. So I told the guy, hey, I got an offer in writing at 214.5. Can you match that offer? So he said, sure. But he hemmed and hawed about the closing costs for a whole day. Finally, he sent me an offer, and he put down a $500 it was a $250 earnest money deposit. I literally called the guy and I say, look, man, I get bigger deposits on cell phones than this. Like, are you serious right now? He goes, man, I buy it all cash. It's going to close. You'll know in 3 days if I'm serious. I go, yeah, but you have nothing to lose. It's an earnest money. I'll put that, you get it back if we don't perform, if you don't get title, because at that point he was trying to claim that I don't even have the title search done. So how does he know that he's buying something legit? And I go, well, that's what the title company's for. That's what the escrow process is for. You have nothing to worry about. You get your money back. And so we argued so much about it that I just said, you know what? I don't even want to deal with this guy anymore. He really gave me a bad taste in my mouth. So I called the other guys back and I said, you know what? I'll go ahead and accept your offer, man. I'm going to go ahead and email it over to you. So I signed it up and sent it over to them. And then by the next morning, they had escrow open. They left with an earnest money deposit. I believe I don't remember if it was a $1,000 to $2,000 earnest money deposit, but escrow was opened up. Now, at this point, the only problem was at that amount, I was a little worried that I was making so much that the HUD-1 would show everything right to the seller, letting them know exactly how much was being made. And so granted, it was a decent, fair offer for both people. She was making her money regardless, but it was like I had a little bit of a weird feeling about it. So that's when I reached out to you and everybody else about how do I do a double close. So I wanted to do that so that way it was kind of in two separate transactions. I understand I have to pay two sets of closing costs, but that was the best way that I can separate the transactions apart from each other. And so the hard thing was finding a title company that would be able to do a double close, because when I called them, they're like, double close what? No, we don't do that. Who does that kind of thing? We do assignments, not double closes. And so finally, I was able to find First American Title, and the lady that actually was referred to me by one of the people on the bandit signs, and I reached out to him. I said, "Hey, call the bandit. Hey, who do you use?" And they let me know the person in the contact. This is who I use. I reached out to him. She goes, "Well, I don't know if I'll be able to do that." Finally, after going back and forth, she goes, "You know what? I think we can. We just need these certain steps to be taken care of. We need a letter from the lawyer saying that that's okay. We need, full disclosure that you're actually using, because what I did was single source funding, right? Instead of me using a transactional funder, which is what I was inquiring about and trying to find out, I used the funding from so it was A to B and then B to C transaction, right? A to B was the seller to me, and B to C was me to the end buyer, the cash buyer. So what it was we had to close and get escrow done on the second transaction first, so that the money was in escrow, and they used that funding to pay for the first transaction, and they gave me the difference.
Like a
And so it was,
like a pass through. Yeah.
yeah, so it was a double close with single source funding is what it ended up being.
Yeah.
And so that ended up working out. I went in, and it took about a 10-day, 12-day super stressful process, because we're going back and forth. One thing led to the next day. They needed more information. They needed information from the bank saying the payoff amount, and then one day led to the next. Then the lawyer went out of town for like a vacation or something, and she had to sign off on like the okay for it, or give it an opinion letter or whatever it was called, so that way we can go ahead and go through with the transaction. And through all of that, the time's ticking, because now we got to the point where it was the week before the foreclosure sale, and it was in escrow, but it hadn't closed, and I was promised that it closed on Monday, and here we are on Friday, and here we are on like Thursday, Friday. I'm like, is it going to close tomorrow? And she's like, probably, I think so, but there wasn't a degree of certainty that I was comfortable with. And so we were just going back and forth, and then finally, everything just kind of fell into place. I called back, because I was calling her at this point every day, just about. I called back and I said, "Hey, what's going on?" She goes, "Well, I got the payoff amount from the lender. I got the letters from the lawyers. I got the everything that I need to take care of. I have my escrow department sign off on it. I got the funding in from the buyers. That's already in here. So everything's here. We just got to pretty much do the paperwork." And that was on Thursday. Friday, afternoon, she gives me an email and says, "Hey, now we're just, it's pretty much done. All we have to do is wait for the funding to kick in, and we can go ahead and pay you," meaning the funding from the whole transaction. And I go, "Oh, wow. Okay, cool." But I didn't want to count my chickens again. I go, "There's not a deal done until the cash is in my bank account or in my hand." Right. And so yeah, that was on Friday. And then I wanted to clear my mind. So I went out of town for the weekend and just kind of stopped thinking about it, because it's all been going on and it's coming up to a close. And then Monday morning at about 8 o'clock this morning, I got a text message that said, "Hey, money's here. Where do you, what do you want? You want it wired to you?" And I go, "Can I get it in cash?" And she was like, "If you want it in cash, sure. We'll give you a cashier's check or whatever." And so I literally went and drove out of my way, went to the bank, and I picked it up in cash from the bank. I went and cashed a check, and I was just like, "Yeah, this is," I went to the back. They're like, "You sure you want all this cash?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to feel it, touch it, smell it. I want to make sure that, that it's real, that I get the motivation from it." And so, yeah, so it closed with no really big hiccups. It was really stressful and really daunting along the way. The time frame, being that it was changing and one thing led to another, and going from the beginning of it, from being at $1 amount, and then getting buyers in that told me that was going to be, not going to be a good enough deal for them. Basically, it was real discouraging, but I didn't ever look back. I never really stopped and said, "You know what, man, let me just can this deal. It's not worth it." Or I could have not went back to the seller, and then I would have been looking at $10,000, $11,000, right? And so, being that those offers that were coming in was at that price, and when I went back to her and she, granted that lowered amount of 180, I was just like ecstatic about that, and that's what really, just that perseverance. That's what really made this deal happen for me from the gate. Not really ever believing that basically running into any hurdles, I just jumped right over them. From the time that I contacted the bank and they said, "Hey, you're not the person on here. We can't talk to you." I could have just hung the phone up and not contacted them again, and then the house would have been sold on Tuesday. and none of this would have happened. But something told me I didn't like the way that person, the people on the phone, I can kind of hear in their voice, are they a helpful person? When you want to get the hookup, you pick the line. You're like, hey, which line do I pick for the hookup? That looks like a nice lady or whatever. I kind of do that, right? And so that's exactly how it was. And I called back, and they were able to, step by step, they were able to get that extended. Then, from the initial price to the fact that I got the offer amount lowered to the 2-month process for the probate, jumped down to the emergency, administrator appointment 2 days afterwards to get that under contract. From the fact that I couldn't do transactional funding to the point where nobody would do it, I called 10 title companies and everybody was like, no. And then something told me to call that bandit sign, the lady I met from the bandit sign, back, because she had been doing it for a long time. I go, you don't know anybody who does double closing? And she referred me, so through all those trials and tribulations, I'm super happy that I barreled through it and didn't really look back. And now we're here. And so Monday morning, I pick up the check. We got it in at 180, and the person paid 214.5 after all fees. They actually even paid the closing costs, or most of them, just the escrow fees all I had to pay. So it was about 213 and some change or whatever it was. And then I got that, cashier check for $33,000, man. And it was something else.
That's
Dude,
awesome.
Like that whole story, man, like from start to finish.
You know what? The takeaways from it for me is just, one, and just in meeting you in person too, it's like you're very persistent, and which helped a ton here. And then two is that when you ran into something where you needed some expert opinion, every single time you went and got it. There's a lot of investors they'll try and like, hey, I'll figure out what the repair costs are. You got contractors to walk through. Hey, I'll figure out title. I'll go through the law library. It's free. Yeah, no. I'm an attorney. No, don't do that. Go talk to an attorney. You had Legal Shield. It's funny hearing you say that, because I know a lot of attorneys that they work for places like that, and it's like they're real. They really are real. And if you have it, use it.
Yeah, just like car insurance or something like that. You think about it like, yeah, you pay $50 a month. They're going to pay out a $30,000 claim if you need it. Just like you pay $25 a month, they're going to give you the time, because they have a pool of money from all these other individuals. Some people don't use it, and that's what it's all about. And so it really, like, I got a legit attorney. I thought I was, and it was almost on a stretch of my imagination. I go, you know what? That's not going to happen. I'm just going to call these people. They're probably going to pun me off, refer me to something. But it was an actual attorney from Los Angeles who spent the time with me, got back to me, told me exactly the steps, told me, hey, I'm working on one right now. Let me see what we had to do for this, and let me get back to you. Call me back and kind of really set me in the right direction. And so, just believing in it and in the process, and believing in myself, really, I'm just glad that I got that instilled into me at some point in time in my life to not give up, because I can see so many parts about this transaction of where it could have went awry and I could have just stopped. And here I would have been sitting here like a lot of people saying, I still don't have my first deal. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, luckily, from the law of attraction, just listening to you guys every day, if I hadn't been that persistent at wanting to educate myself, maybe she walks in and I'm not listening to that. She doesn't hear that, or I don't even say, you know what? Let me try to call them right now. I could have waited till next Friday after that, but just doing it right away. That was one thing that I took away from this transaction is you got to be persistent, and you gotta jump on it right away. From losing that 222.5, right? I'm sitting here like, man, I can wait till Tuesday. Nothing's going to change. And there we go. They went down to 214. Had they had that in writing and I got it locked in, that would have been the price. But they had that time to sit back and think. And I don't know if it was a negotiating tactic, but I didn't have the time to figure that out, right? I'm just like, okay, 214, whatever, man. Just let's get this thing done. But even then, I thought, well, if I would have just been that much more persistent on Thursday when we talked about it, got the offer signed by Thursday night or Friday morning, there's $6,000 or $7,000 more, or what, $8,000 more that I would have been getting right now. Maybe. Or who knows if I would have went back to the seller and got that reduction. But who knows, right? But I mean, it's just the persistence, though.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is that your deal was textbook. I mean, the thing that we talk about in the group all the time is that if you skip a step, you lose money. And I mean, you just talked about it. I mean, you were diligent at every single, because you had plenty of opportunities to skip a step, to jump forward, to try to skip part of the process, and it would have hurt you. Like, you talked about you were guessing on the ARV. So you went, you got
realtors.
you got a range of information. The same with the repair costs. You could have easily just said, oh, well, you know what, like, I can talk to the guys in the group and they'll give me a quick and dirty as to what the repair costs are. I can give you a rule of thumb, but we always tell you, get a general contractor or a subcontractor.
Right. And that really helped during my negotiating process, because the guy is like, no, this is going to cost me this is going to cost me that. I go, no, because I got a guy right now who just left who will do it for this price.
Right.
And he goes, oh, you do? Huh? I'm like, yeah, and I can give you his number. He can come back down here and meet with you. So your numbers are super inflated. So what you're doing is you're inflating your numbers. I don't know where you got your value for this place at, because he said, he started a conversation of this is worth $250. But when I gave him the paperwork that I got from a realtor, right, and all the comps that I had and the actual comps were in my hand, his tones changed to, well, this house is only worth 280, 275 from that conversation. So he was swearing that it was worth 250. Yeah. After me coming back saying, hey, I actually got the stuff in my hands. I actually talked to real people and then negotiating with him. He goes, well, yeah, it's worth 270, 280. So maybe I can come up a little bit, but I still got to sell this thing. Maybe this is what I can do. And so that right there is like, it was a really, really integral part about this transaction, really getting down to reaching out to people and not skipping the step, like you said, and actually getting hard numbers on those, because it's easy. You don't skip it. Don't just guess. Call a contractor. They're going to come out, sound sure, and don't be a guy that's going to say that and don't use them. Legitimately, if there's an opportunity to use them and reach out later, reach out, because you're doing you a favor, Don't just use them for their info. I mean, obviously, there's no guarantee that you're going to use them. But if there is an opportunity for me now, then somebody says they need a contractor, maybe I'll tag them, and I will. And I'll give them their phone number, and I'll say, hey, this guy gave me, an estimate. They're really fair. You should use them. And the guy that bought the house, even though he has guys, I said, if you need anything done, I got a guy who gave me a quote. Here's his information, and they're happy to do that. And as long as they know that you seem, you have the walk to walk, right, and talk to talk. But like, as long as you seem like you're a serious guy and you're not just, going to be wasting their time, which I assured them I wasn't. The realtors, the contractors, and everybody else, they're more than happy to help you out because they want the work,
Absolutely. See, that's the thing, is that there is no investor friendly nothing. It's all there Charles friendly. They were dealing with a guy who had his head screwed on straight, that they knew was a straight shooter, that you're not jerking him around at all. And so people want to do business with people like that. I mean, you've been in business in multiple different arenas. So like the same hold true. Rule number one is don't be a dick. Be a good person,
Right.
And that gets you far. And so, I mean, honestly, dude, I am over the moon ecstatic for you. Like, this is, I'm like, and then be able to talk about it in front of the group, because we've got tons of people who every single day are, hey, how do I get my first deal? How do I do this? And we're like, you know what? Like, there's no special formula to it. It's about persistence. Like you talk, follow the steps. It's there are no shortcuts. There are, and that's the big thing. And it's just like, this is all. I mean,
well, my big thing with this, what I'm really glad we were able to do, Charles, is that you're able to actually do this on video. Because, like, even from the point of, getting the information, talking to foreclosure, getting everything that you needed done, and then going out to the auctions and because I've been to like 200 freaking auctions. I mean, I go to them like we're going tomorrow. So
yep, I'm going to one tomorrow too, man. I'm going to Sacramento because there's people on the groups that keep asking, hey, I got a deal in Sacramento, and I literally don't have buyers out there. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to Sacramento tomorrow, and I'm going to meet some buyers because I might open up some more doors,
Yeah, but I mean, your logic's perfect, because that's where they are. There's people that have $400,000 or $500,000. Yeah, they want to buy houses, and they're willing to go and buy these sight unseen at a foreclosure auction. They're willing to go ahead and let you, if you're going to let them walk through the property, and they don't have to necessarily walk around with just hard cash.
Because most of them are going to strike out.
Yeah, most of the people at the auction
they do.
And they got a ton of money and they want to buy, and so it's like, it's just this big screaming place of like, hey, buyers right here, and and knowing that, and then going back again and again and again, and building up that buyer because you can use it later.
And the awesome thing too is that now you have a repeatable process down. Is that, like you mentioned it before, like you've got 3 different businesses
right now.
You've got 3 different businesses that you run. I mean, we are talking about systems and processes, and the thing is that you can ratchet this up as much as you want or as little as you want, but it's something like you can repeat it over and over again. I mean, you said you're working on another deal right now.
Yep, and that fell into my lap because of just this deal. And again, a law of attraction that just came with reaching out to so many people. Now it already is into place. Now I got the same cleanup guy like I told him I would when he gave me a great deal to clean that place up. He just left the place in Stockton right now. He hauled the appliances off. Now he's going to do the cleanup. He's going to build a fence for me. I'm actually going through the steps. I've already contacted my same title lady that I brought her some edible arrangements, right?
I saw that. That was good.
Because I appreciated it, and that can go a long way for people. You never know when I might need her to rush a title or to do some favors for me instead of moving me up to the top of the stack, and getting that taken care of. So I wanted to make sure that I gave her, it wasn't much, but it was a good gesture towards her saying, hey, thank you so much for all your help and your hard work. I really appreciate it. She goes, nobody's ever done that for me. And I'm sure she'll remember that. And the next time I come around, if I ever need her help, or even if it's a normal transaction, I like to take care of people that take care of me. And so that's already in the works. I actually kept the ad up from the Riverbank house, so I got people still calling me from it, and I just follow right up and I go, hey, you know what, that's under contract already, or that's already been sold, but I do get houses like this all the time. How would you like me to add? I get more information, like, what do you like to buy? Are you an investor? Are you another wholesaler? Because it's fine if you're a wholesaler, just let me know what you like to buy, or if you're actually investing, are you doing it for yourself or for a group? Right. And so now I got 2 guys actually that they're already bugging me. They're like, what about that house in Stockton? Because I tell them, hey, I got one I'm working on in Stockton right now. It's not ready yet. And they go, well, the way I put myself across, I guess the guy told me, it sounds like you already got buyers for that one. Can I look at it too? And I'm like, no, not yet, man. I for sure, before I sign anything, I'll let you look at it, And so I'm already kind of drumming up some people to talk to about it. And so that way, once I get it there, I'm not sitting here with a deal without anybody to show. If I can get 10 people in front of that house in the first week that I have it available to actually show to people, then I think that it'll get sold and get sold for the right price. And so it's just and before I say anything else, I really want to thank you guys too, man. Like every part about what you guys do, I know I kind of mention it, but like for sure, like just the way the group is, your personalness to every member to the group, where you guys get on there and you answer questions. I feel like it's my home for real estate. I belong to all the other ones, but I kind of just put them on the side. And this is really my favorite group, period, on, whether it's for fun or for work or forever on Facebook. I'm always looking forward to the updates, the lives, answering the questions. I really respect your guys's your candor, and the way that you put things. I really trust you, and I really do. And I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's just the experience. Maybe it's the way you carry yourself. But I really take your word like gold, like seriously. And so I know that you guys are going to lead us astray. And I really believe that you guys care about us, And I really thank you. I really do, man. I can't say enough,
It does. It means a lot, because it's why we're not the ones. We're not, it's always better coming from someone like yourself, when we're not, we said that we're in it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
But other internet world doesn't believe it until they see it. So I appreciate that a ton. It doesn't mean that we're going to take it easy on you if we ever play paintball together, but
right.
Hey,
bring it on, man. Bring it on. I'm ready. I love competition.
He's a pro, ladies and gentlemen. I think the only way that I'll beat him is if I have a fire hose of paint that I just.
We'll be on the same team, man. We work together.
I appreciate that.
Yep. So now, next steps are to give me some bandit. I'm going to reinvest. I'm getting a website, getting some professional cards. And I got the ones from Staples, but I need to get some better cards. I went on Fiverr, believe it or not, and got me a logo. Right. got me a nice logo design. I just ordered some banded signs. I ordered 250 banded signs. I bought a list. I bought a vacant home list, which I've been actually calling myself. I wanted to get a VA eventually, but I think I'm a firm believer in living through it myself the first couple times, because I could have easily got a VA to skip trace and call the list, but I wanted to do it myself so that way I can actually go through the pain of not getting in contact with people, feeling that first motivated seller call that led to a deal, and seeing what actually worked and what doesn't work, as opposed to hiring somebody else, because that doesn't really help me in the long run. And so I'm going through that list right now. I just bought a a tax delinquency list, which only comes out once a year from the county. And so I'm going to be working on that. So now finally I'm able to actually reinvest into the business and go and make it a business, as opposed to just kind of herky jerky deals here and there, and I know there's much more. We talked about it, but building a system, building a team, right? Because that's the first thing that I wanted to do, make sure that I have a title person, I have a real estate agent kind of that can give me ideas, a contractor, a cleanup person, electrician, a plumber, and kind of employing that team around. And so the next step, though, is to actually reinvest in my marketing, because you can't do this thing without, generating some leads. That's the main thing, the lifeblood of it all.
Keep filling that pipeline.
Right.
That's the biggest thing, is that, and we touch on it, is that, you're starting to see it now, is that, once you start working on one deal, you've already got to start looking to the next. And, it's the cool thing about someone in your position is that you see this whole process play out a little bit differently, because you've been through it with your own businesses. And so now it's just, I want to work on the business and not so much in it, and start leveraging the other pieces to make my life easier. But I'm totally with you in the sense of, like, especially for us right now, we're in the process of building and scaling out our team, and we want them to experience, to see what those, it's like we have a VA that calls through lists for us, and that whole piece to it. But for the new people that we bring onto our team, because like we partner with real estate brokerages, and we want them to hear what those phone calls sound like. I want, you got to hear what a tax delinquent phone call sounds
exactly
like, what a foreclosure, and then, then you can kind of earn the right to have some leads fed to you in a different manner. But yeah, you have to, if you don't know what each part of the process is like, you don't know how to troubleshoot.
Right.
You don't know how to improve upon it. You don't know how to make it better. And, that's the biggest thing that, we teach people, is that you've got to be able to, like, that's why you don't cut corners, because if you continue, like, because you lose money every time you do
Absolutely.
that, and you lose the ability to scale if you've never experienced that before. So I mean, dude, you're doing it so right, it hurts, man.
Thanks, man.
So
thanks for the blueprint, at least, and the continual education. I'm still going to be there every time I can, every day, looking at new. I try my best to chime in if there's anything that I've experienced that I can try to help somebody else out. If they ask a question, I try my best to give my honest, I don't want to say opinion, but honest life experienced answer, and help them out and send them on the right direction, because it's all a family here,
Absolutely.
And so
it's very real. It's very real. Well, hey, my friend, I know that you've got a lot of work to do and stuff. I can't thank you enough for coming on today and sharing your story with everybody.
For sure. Thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely. If you guys have any more questions for Charles or us, please shoot them below. If you want more info on how Charles did this, shoot a fire emoji down low, and we will reach out. We'll kind of walk you through the whole thing. So, dude, Charles, thanks again. Look forward to interacting with you in the group, as always. And
for sure, man. I'll keep you guys updated on this new deal that I got going on right now. That is, 2 houses on 1 acre, and once again, it was just pretty much trashed by. It was what they call a bando, which is like an abandoned property for about a year here, and so the guy passed away or whatnot. And so we're dealing with that right now, and it's just a lot of things that we're gonna have to do. They cut the copper on the inside, and they stole the well, the pump to the well, and so there's just all kind of things that I'm so looking forward to, believe it or not, learning about and dealing with people and I just look forward to it. And so it's all part of the process of me becoming a real estate investor. Because at some point in time, I want to be really being the guy fixing and flipping to the point where I have a bunch of houses that I can pay for the rest of my life, but we got to start somewhere. And this is kind of where it started. And you guys are a huge part of the beginning of my career in real estate investing. I look forward to working with you guys more. Okay.
Appreciate it, Charles. Thank you, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Thanks a lot, man. Bye.